The ER called. My husband had an unusual accident at a hotel. When I arrived, a nurse whispered, "Let's just say, he won't be impressing any women again." I looked at the woman crying next to him, smirked, and said, "Hope you like him this way, because I'm out." It was a regular Thursday morning in March. I was at home in Scottsdale, Arizona, sipping my coffee and going through emails. The phone rang and I answered, expecting it to be a telemarketer. Instead, it was the emergency room at Scottsdale General Hospital. "Mrs. Carter? This is Nurse Thompson. Your husband, Michael Carter, has been admitted following an unusual accident at the Desert Rose Hotel." My heart sank. "Is he okay?" "He's stable, but you should come down immediately." I grabbed my keys and rushed to the hospital, a million thoughts racing through my mind. When I arrived, a nurse pulled me aside, her expression a mix of concern and something else I couldn't quite place. "Mrs. Carter, your husband. Let's just say he won't be impressing any women again." I was taken aback. "What do you mean?" She hesitated. "There was an incident involving, let's just say, a compromising position and some unfortunate consequences." I pushed past her into the room and found Michael lying in bed, a look of pain and embarrassment on his face. Beside him sat a woman, tears streaming down her cheeks. I looked at her, then at him. "Hope you like him this way, because I'm out." As I left the hospital, memories flooded back. Michael and I had been married for 15 years. We met in college, built a life together, and had 2 beautiful children. But over the past year, things had changed. He became distant, working late, taking mysterious trips. I had my suspicions, but I never imagined this. Back home, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat down to think. I needed to understand what had happened. I started digging. I checked his phone records, credit card statements, and even his social media. Patterns emerged: frequent stays at the Desert Rose Hotel, late-night calls to an unknown number. I hired a private investigator who confirmed my worst fears. Michael had been having an affair with a woman named Jessica, a colleague from his office. The PI provided photos, timestamps, and even a video of them entering the hotel together. Armed with evidence, I confronted Michael at home. "How long has this been going on?" I demanded. He looked down, ashamed. "About a year." "And the accident?" He sighed. "We were in the middle of something when the bed collapsed." I landed awkwardly and, well, you know the rest. I couldn't help but laugh. The irony was too much. I filed for divorce the next day. The kids were devastated, but I explained everything as gently as I could. Michael moved out, and I focused on rebuilding my life. I joined a support group, started therapy, and even took up painting. A year later, I was in a much better place. I had a new job, new friends, and a newfound sense of independence. One day, I received a letter from Michael. He apologized, expressed regret, and asked for forgiveness. I wrote back, "I forgive you, but I don't forget. I hope you've learned from this." Now, I share my story to help others. Infidelity is painful, but it's not the end. With time, support, and self-love, you can heal and find happiness again. Remember, sometimes the worst moments lead to the best new beginnings. A few weeks after filing the divorce papers, I started noticing weird things. First, Michael's lawyer kept stalling. Then I got a call from my lawyer saying Michael was contesting the divorce terms, which was crazy because he was clearly at fault and we had a prenup. That prenup was signed the year after our second kid was born, and it clearly stated that infidelity voids his rights to spousal support or any claim to the house. But now, suddenly, Michael was saying I had known about the affair for months and was fine with it. That was a lie. A bold one. Then it got worse. Jessica, the woman from the hospital room, filed for a restraining order against me. I nearly choked when the papers showed up at my door. She claimed I threatened her in the hospital room, that I lunged at her. Which didn't happen. I was too shocked and disgusted to even raise my voice, let alone go after her physically. My lawyer told me to stay calm and let them handle it. But I was starting to feel like this wasn't just about an affair anymore. It felt like Michael and Jessica were trying to ruin me. I couldn't figure out why, until I got a message from an old coworker of Michael's. Let's call him Rick. Rick reached out on Facebook and said we needed to talk. I agreed to meet him at a local coffee shop, and what he told me made my blood run cold. Apparently, Michael and Jessica had been planning to move to California together and start some kind of wellness startup, something about retreats and energy healing and God knows what else. But the real kicker? They needed money. And fast. According to Rick, Michael had been siphoning small amounts of money from our joint account over the last 6 months. Nothing that would raise red flags individually, but together it added up to over $25,000. Rick had overheard Michael bragging about how dumb I was for not noticing. I went home, opened the banking app, and started going through every single transaction for the past year. And sure enough, it was all there. Hotel charges, random wire transfers, purchases at stores I never stepped foot in. I printed it all out and handed it to my lawyer the next morning. Meanwhile, Jessica's restraining order got tossed. There was security footage from the hospital room, and it clearly showed me standing still, arms crossed, not even stepping toward her. That helped my case. But it didn't stop the harassment. The next twist came from my kids. My daughter, 13, came to me crying one night. She said Jessica had tried to pick her up from school as a surprise, and when the school said no and called me, Jessica just smiled and said she was going to be her new mom soon anyway. I was shaking with rage. I called the school, the police, my lawyer, everyone. Jessica got a visit from the cops and backed off, but at that point, I knew I had to go full protection mode. I installed cameras around the house. I changed passwords. I opened a new bank account. I blocked Michael and Jessica on everything. The divorce proceedings got uglier. Michael claimed he had emotional distress from the accident and tried to claim part of my retirement fund. My lawyer laughed in his face during mediation. But they kept pushing. I couldn't believe the man I once loved was now trying to destroy me. And for what? To run off with some low-rent scammer and start a yoga scam in San Diego? One night, as I was getting ready for bed, I got an anonymous email. No subject. No text. Just 2 photos. One was Michael, lying in a hospital bed with his legs elevated, obviously the night of the accident. The second was of him and Jessica, kissing in front of our house. My house. The timestamp? 2 nights ago. I checked the security footage, and sure enough, their car had parked across the street just after 11 p.m. They never came to the door. Just stood in the shadows. Watching. That night, I didn't sleep. And that's when I realized this wasn't about love or lust. This was about control. Michael wasn't just cheating. He wanted to win. And if he couldn't win me back, he wanted to ruin what was left of my peace. But he had no idea who he was messing with now. A few days after the anonymous email, I started wondering who sent it. Someone had to be watching them. Someone close enough to know what Michael and Jessica were doing, but also angry enough to warn me. I checked the email header. It was a burner account. No way to trace it. But I couldn't shake the feeling someone was trying to help me. Then Rick messaged me again. This time, he wanted to meet in person. We sat down at a diner outside Phoenix, and he looked nervous. I didn't tell you everything, he said, because I wasn't sure how deep it went. I leaned in. How deep does it go? He pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. It was Jessica, but not with Michael. She was sitting at a bar with another guy, older, bald, expensive watch, white linen shirt. They were laughing, holding hands. Who's that? His name's Brent. He's a venture capitalist. Jessica's been meeting him behind Michael's back. Word is, she's trying to cut Michael out of the startup plan. She told Brent she's single. My stomach dropped. So Jessica wasn't just a homewrecker. She was a double-crosser. A full-time con. But it didn't stop there. She's planning something big, Rick continued. She's been talking about cleaning house before her new life starts. She said Michael's too soft, and she's getting tired of waiting. It hit me then Jessica was using Michael. The accident? Maybe it wasn't just bad luck. Maybe it was part of a bigger plan that went sideways. I left the diner with my heart pounding. What if Michael wasn't the mastermind? What if he was just the puppet? That night, I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer, but they left a voicemail. It was Michael. He sounded drunk. I know you're watching me, he slurred. I know you think you're smart, but you don't know what she's capable of. She said if I mess this up again, she'll finish the job. She laughed about the accident. Said I'm useless now. I replayed the message 5 times. Michael was scared. The man who had betrayed me, tried to ruin my life, now sounded like he was running from someone worse. I saved the voicemail and sent it to my lawyer, just in case. Then I drove to the hospital where he had his follow-ups. I needed answers. I waited in the parking lot until I saw him. He looked thinner, pale, defeated. He saw me and froze. You look like crap, I said through the open window. I deserve that, he replied. Why did you call me? He looked around, then got in the car. I think she's planning to disappear. With Brent. And with whatever money's left. She said she'd finish the job. What does that mean? Michael looked at me, eyes red. She said I was supposed to fall harder. That I got lucky. I don't think the bed collapse was an accident. The screws were loose, the legs cut. I didn't notice until I was already midair. I stared at him, speechless. She wanted me out of the way, so she could move on with Brent. Maybe collect some sympathy donations, maybe just disappear. I think she only kept me around because I still had access to our accounts. I started to shake. This was deeper than I thought. And now I was involved whether I liked it or not. Michael told me he had one last account she didn't know about. A hidden savings stash he'd built over the years. He wanted to transfer the money to me for the kids, for the house. As a peace offering, maybe as protection. He handed me a slip of paper with the account info. I think she's watching me, he said. If I disappear, tell the police it was her. I watched him walk away, a broken shell of a man who once tried to destroy me, now looking over his shoulder in fear of the woman he betrayed me for. And in that moment, I felt something I didn't expect. Pity. But that didn't last long. Because the very next day, I got a package on my porch. No return address. Just a manila envelope with my name on it. Inside? Photos of my kids. At school. At the park. At home. On the back of one, scribbled in red marker. Stay out of it, or next time, it's not just a warning. Now, it wasn't just about revenge. It was about survival. I held the photo of my son getting out of the school bus, my hand trembling. The message was clear. They wanted me scared. They wanted me silent. Jessica wasn't just manipulative, she was dangerous. But I wasn't going to run. I'd spent the last year reacting, surviving. Now I needed to act. I called Rick. I asked if he could dig deeper, anything that could prove Jessica was involved in something criminal, or that she'd orchestrated the accident. He agreed to help, though he warned me to be careful. Then I called Michael. Meet me at the bank. Bring all the proof. It's time we end this. The next morning, we met in a small private room at a Chase branch in downtown Phoenix. He brought printouts, screenshots, copies of their joint business plan, emails between Jessica and Brent. There was even a voice recording Jessica ranting to someone on the phone, calling Michael a broken toy, and mocking how his wife still thinks she's in control. That was it. I had enough. Not just to expose her, but to bury her. We made a plan. That Friday, Jessica and Michael were invited to a launch party for the wellness startup. It was hosted at a private co-working space that Brent's company rented monthly. Rick got us 2 guest passes. Michael was going to show up alone, with the documents, and confront Jessica in front of Brent, the investors, and whoever else she'd duped. I was going to be there too, but not seen. Rick and I watched from a side hallway, out of sight, but close enough to record everything. When Jessica walked into the room, glowing and fake smiling in a white jumpsuit, she didn't know what was coming. She found Michael near the back, near a table of hors d'oeuvres and a bowl of citrus punch. She barely had time to greet him before he laid the folder on the table between them. "What's this?" she asked, still playing innocent. "Proof. Of everything. You lied to me, used me, tried to get me killed." Her face didn't twitch. She didn't even blink. "Don't be dramatic," she said calmly. But then Brent walked up behind her. And Michael turned to him. "She told you she was single, right? That I was a crazy ex? Did she tell you she already emptied one guy's bank account?" Brent's face darkened. "Jessica?" Jessica laughed. "Are you seriously listening to him? He's unstable. I have recordings. Emails. Voice messages," Michael said, his voice rising. "She's dangerous. She threatened my kids. She sent photos of them to my ex-wife with a warning." The room got quiet. People started to gather. Phones came out. Someone whispered, "Is this real?" Jessica's mask started to crack. She turned to Brent. "You're not going to listen to this mess, are you?" "I want the truth," he said. That's when I stepped into the room. She saw me and froze. "You should have stayed away," she hissed. "And you should have picked a smarter target," I shot back. Brent stared at both of us. "You threatened her kids?" Jessica's voice was shrill now. "They're lying. They're trying to ruin me because I moved on." I handed Brent a copy of the photo and the threat written on the back. "That's your new partner." It was over in less than 10 minutes. Brent called security. Jessica tried to leave, but someone blocked the door. Police were called. Michael handed over his documents. When the officers showed up, Jessica snapped. She started screaming, shoving a tray of glasses off the table, and lunged at Michael. They cuffed her right there, barefoot and yelling. Someone caught the whole thing on video. I found out later it went viral in some local business circles. We gave our statements, handed over all the files, and walked out of that place in stunned silence. The confrontation was done. But the emotional mess it left behind? That was just beginning. Michael broke down in the parking lot, full on sobbing. He looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I was stupid. I destroyed everything. I didn't hug him. I didn't yell either. I just nodded." "You did." He looked at me with red eyes. You didn't deserve any of this. No, I said. But our kids didn't either. That's what hurts the most. He offered to move out of state. Said he'd sign over whatever was left. Just wanted to disappear. I told him to get help. And I told him I'd never keep the kids from him, but I also wasn't going to protect him anymore. Back home, I cried harder than I had in years. Not because I missed him, but because I had carried this pain for so long, and now that it was over, I didn't know what to do with it. The next week was a blur, lawyers, reporters calling, social workers checking in. I stayed quiet. So did Michael. Jessica was charged with harassment and fraud. Brent publicly dropped out of the startup and issued a statement condemning her actions. Neighbors whispered. Friends picked sides. But mostly, people were just stunned by the whole mess. My sister flew in from Chicago and stayed for a week. She kept saying how strong I was. But strength isn't always a choice. Sometimes it's just the only option left. Months passed. I got a new job at a design firm. The kids started therapy. I joined a hiking group and met people who didn't know my story. That helped. Michael sent letters. Long ones. About shame, regret, healing. I read them all. But I never responded. I wasn't angry anymore. Just tired. Eventually, I sat down and wrote him back. I don't hate you. But I can't fix you. You have to want to fix yourself. Our chapter is over, but I hope you write a better one for yourself. It ended like that. Quietly. No big scene. No final scream. Just silence, peace, and the long, slow return to myself. I'm not sure if I believe in closure. Some wounds don't close. They just stop bleeding. But I know this. I walked through hell and didn't let it burn me down. I protected my kids. I faced the truth. I faced him. And I'm still standing. Maybe that's enough. For now.